Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, AARP Wisconsin, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel.
Angel Sanchez of Milwaukee is a Republican candidate in the 8th Assembly District. The election is November 6th. Mr. Sanchez, welcome back to WisconsinEye.
Thank you very much for having me.
You say on your website, we should tax and make marijuana legal as a source of revenue for roads, highways, and bridge funding. Explain why that's a good way to pay for our roads.
Well, any way we can find extra money to pay for roads is a good idea. But I think with the issue of marijuana, marijuana was something it's always been pretty common, I think, throughout our entire country. But the reality is that I think that where we're at right now, there's two different types. There's a medical marijuana, which I'm fully in favor of, and also the recreational marijuana. Why do I say that? It's something that, first of all, it's something that's being used heavily, but it's not being regulated and it's not being taxed.
Okay.
I have a son who's 13 years old, and he posed that question to me just a few months ago, and he says, "Dad, what would ever happen if I ever had the urge to smoke marijuana?" And I had to answer that as a parent. And my question is, I said, well, I think then if that's the case, I think I'm going to have to buy it for you if you're that adamant about it. Because what we know today is that kids that are trying this on an exploratory basis, a lot of them are getting very sick, some of them are dying. And that's pretty serious business. I think that as a parent, these are things you got to watch out for. And I know it's a huge concern to me.
Could we really tax marijuana, legalize it and tax it enough to make a difference in paying for our highways? Would it be that big of a source of revenue, Mr. Sanchez?
There are other states that are doing it, and those numbers would have to be under review to see the scope of it, see what the money that's generating. But what we do know is that I come from the industry of building roads. And in our industry, there are steps that I know I've taken as an elected official many years ago that we've helped cut and made infrastructure, I think, more affordable. And one of those ways is by eliminating some trucking, where we've actually done a lot of concrete recycling on site. We've also brought in portable concrete plants. So we've reduced the time of traveling with wet concrete material for building roads. Mm-hmm. And this has now become the norm in the industry. People are crushing it everywhere on site. People are bringing in portable plants on site. You see them all alongside the highway by Racine right now, most recently by Foxconn. But this is going on everywhere. It's really become the norm. And so the idea behind getting extra revenues is to try to maybe cut down on some of the expenses involved with, for example, with a lot of the dirt that needs the soils that need to be removed to prepare the grade for paving. There's a lot of hauling involved there. So we can affect that number. We can affect, for example, some of the other aggregates, the stone, the sand, the cement, fly ash, all of these things, the steel that's needed, all these things cost a lot of money, and any help would be good.
If taxing legalized marijuana and some of these new building ways to do that were not enough, would you vote to raise the gas tax or implement tolling or the vehicle registration fee?
I think that what I believe is that I'm not really for any additional taxes. I really do believe we pay enough already, and we pay a lot here, especially here in Milwaukee. But what I do think is that I think that the state of Wisconsin, the people in the state of Wisconsin, that would be something that I think would be a good referendum measure. Let the people decide where they're at on that. I can tell you that when you look at, for example, building a piece of road, even a quarter-mile piece of road, you have fiber optics, you have street lighting, you have sewers, you have all of the prep work involved. I mean, you're talking thousands and thousands of hours, in some cases practically the whole summer, to do one small stretch of road. And here's something else I'll mention. in the world of infrastructure, there's really only 12 paving companies in the entire state that build roads. And that's got to handle everything from Racine, Green Bay, Milwaukee, Madison. There's other companies in the industry, but they specialize in building bridges. So that's a little bit different from what we do. So there's really, I mean, you could argue that we could probably have 50 paving companies. And then again, you need more funding and stuff. And then, well, there again we go. Do we spend more money on that, or do we spend more money on prisons?
Well, you mentioned Foxconn. Would you have voted for the Foxconn tax breaks and tax incentives?
Absolutely.
You would?
Yes, I would. And I think that right now there's a lot going on right now. The preparation work. I was just working in Racine, driving up and down the frontage roads. There's people working everywhere. This is really, really good for the state. But I think that the dividends are going to pay down the road. People want to build businesses. They want to be, if you will, in an area where there's a lot of energy. And Foxconn's going to do that. They're going to be the foundation. They're going to be the anchor and the magnet for other things to happen. And this is going to affect a lot of other industries as well. The housing industry, it's going to affect, obviously, transportation. The highway's getting fixed up now. Yeah. But there's a lot of other great things that'll come of it.
What about now, Kimberly-Clark wants Foxconn-type tax breaks and benefits. Would you vote for that homegrown Wisconsin company to have the same tax breaks?
What I think I would have done, especially at this point, I think they do deserve a hearing. Unfortunately, my understanding of the hearing is they wanted it all within a few weeks and an answer within a few weeks. That expectation, I think, was a little bit high. It would have required bipartisan support, which would have been interesting. But the thing is, here again, what's going to happen if we were to vote on that? Are we going to have another company come forward and another one come forward? You have to be able to draw the line, and I don't think that particular proposal up there is of the magnitude that Foxconn is. So that's that. Yeah.
You're a former local elected official.
Yeah.
Levy limits. They've been around for 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
Is it time to get rid of them, loosen them, or keep them?
Well, let me just say this, that, I have 4 kids, and we do a lot as a family, and we have a tight budget that we run, and even if we go out to the carnival, the kids know that we can only do so much. I understand the levy limits, and I understand the impact it has, and I understand that, I think that the mayor always says, well, the Madison, we need more money, but, a big part of this, I understand how the city government works because I work there. We have, for example, right now, 30% of our real estate right now in our city is they're tax delinquent properties. Now, 30% of the entire city, so that's all tax-based money. So the question is, while that is all going on, the real question on that issue alone is the city by now should have formulated a plan to deal with those tax delinquent properties where everyone who's responsible for paying real estate tax, whether they foreclose upon or they sell their home, should really be paying the back taxes that they owe the city. This is revenue that the city needs. But the city has many other mechanisms where they have gone to the taxpayer with high fees for permits, parking fees. And the big thing that they're doing here, unlike any other part of the state that I'm aware of, is they've rolled tax fees into our water bills here at the city. And that is just to divert away from the big thing, which is the city's budget. So a lot of the money that people are paying in their water company are actually money that should be really part of the city's budget, and that's how they've been able to manipulate what the tax rate is. They've been able to manipulate assessments with real estate tax, and then they've diverted some of their expenses into other areas to show that they've been performing well. There are good things happening in the city, but I think that we need to take a real responsible, a real fiscal, a real iron-tight look at getting back on track.
The current state budget did increase significantly state aid to our K-12 public schools. Mm-hmm. Do we need another similar big increase in the next state budget, Mr. Sanchez?
Well, it just depends. I mean, I used to work as a teacher for approximately 10 years as a substitute teacher in the MPS. And I come from a family of a lot of education. Both of my parents only had about 3rd grade education, but almost everyone in my family has a bachelor's degree, master's, or working on their doctorate degree. My sister was a teacher. My other sister was a principal. So education's a big thing. Public education does work. It works really well in different parts of the state. It works well in some parts of the MPS as well. There are some great schools in the MPS. There are some really great students. But by and large, the MPS public education has a lot of challenges. I have said in the past that if you put brand new carpet in the entire building, you put brand new buildings up there, it really wouldn't change the climate of what goes on in the MPS. To continue to throw money at a system that needs to find ways to increase their performance isn't always the answer. And that is a challenge. So the idea of continuing to give money is, I'm not saying that it couldn't happen, but maybe we would be allocating those dollars to new efforts and new ways of trying to educate our kids. The measure I always use with people is how much our society has changed. And I ask people from all walks of life, when's the last time some young kid came to your home, knocked on the door and said, can I shovel your snow? They don't do that. Kids haven't done that for well over 10, 15 years. Why? Our work ethic changed. And we need to get back to the work. The black and white, the plain, simple, hard nuts and bolts, if you will, of what built America. It was immigrants and a lot of hard work. It's really simple.
The voucher and the choice program, do you support it?
Absolutely.
You do?
Yep.
Why?
I think it's a great idea. Parents should have a choice. Parents should have a choice as far as where they want to send their kids, and they should be able to get out there and get informed and see what's working. I know that when I was at the MPS, parent-teacher conference would come by. In our case, we'd have only 30% of the parents showing up. Not good enough. The curriculum that's in the MPS is much different than the curriculum that's in Rhinelander or in Viroqua, Wisconsin. Why is it? What's going on in public education? I got a chance to tour Watertown High School a few months ago, and they have this like multi-million-dollar welding facility, and it dawned on me, what is it that district knows about welding? Why have they made this investment? Why is there all this sophisticated equipment here? They know something. They're preparing their kids for the future. Our kids need to work, our kids need to make a living, and we need to make changes that adapt to the needs of the future.
2 of our prisons were built in the 1800s. Mm-hmm. There's a big debate in the next budget over whether we need a new prison. Do we?
What I think we need to do is we need to get the cost of inmates. It costs about $45,000 a year to house an inmate right now in our prison. That number is way too high. We have veterans that could use a little extra money. We have seniors that could use a little extra money for medication. My own sister has been in a wheelchair for 25 years. She has muscular sclerosis. I think she gets a total of about $9,000 a year of assistance. And we have people in prison, 45,000, and we're talking about new prisons. I think what we need to do is find ways to get that number down and find ways that, to have the inmate population, there's got to be a way that they can produce. I have my own ideas about what should happen there on a national level, by the way, with respect to inmates. I think that they should be earning their own keep, if you will.
Okay. Bills in the Capitol that would legalize recreational and medical marijuana, your positions?
Well, again, I'd have to review the bill and everything, but I think I made it pretty clear where I'm at on the recreational marijuana and the medical marijuana. I think that I think that Americans have to make choices every single day about what they eat, where they work, and I just think that it's more of an educated decision there. But I know for a fact that I think the time is right.
Yeah, and I apologize. I had asked you about that earlier.
Oh no, that's fine.
My bad. Healthcare. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about healthcare in the rural areas. Best way to preserve it and protect it in rural Wisconsin? Your thoughts?
Well, I think that first of all, I always talk about flipping the food chart, the food pyramid in America upside down. It seems that we're now becoming a society now that's gluten-free, and we're actually understanding food versus what we were educated upon as children, that you should have so many carbs and so much this, but we're finding out the dangers and all the health hazards. My own mother-in-law, and I'm engaged, but she's my mother-in-law, just so you know. Gail Buzzy, unfortunately, she's come down with Alzheimer's, very young age. And we've learned a lot about Alzheimer's, and a lot of what we've learned is a lot of it has to do with the food that people eat. But we need to get past language barriers. We need to have educational components, and we need to teach people the benefits of eating correctly for a lifetime.
Okay. Does the state government have a duty and obligation to recruit and retain doctors, nurses, other healthcare professionals, or leave that up to private business?
Does the state government have an obligation?
Yeah.
I don't know that the state government has an obligation to do that. I think that the government has an obligation to run efficiently, defend and protect our state for safety. I think that they're responsible for creating perhaps the best business climate to attract some of those people that you mentioned to come here and live and work and play. Mm-hmm. And those are things that I think we need to do. Wisconsin's a great place to be. I love being here in Wisconsin.
State government and Delta Dental have a program that subsidizes dental care in clinics that serve the low income. Should that remain a priority in the state Medicaid program?
I think so. And again, I haven't reviewed the impact that some of these programs have on budgets, but I'd like to say this. There is a huge need for children out there and for single parents that have all these dental issues with their children. There's people out in our community that have diabetes that can't even afford their insulin. I mean, this is the reality of things. This is the world we live in. And that's what this election is about. This election, is beyond two people from two different parties. This election is about where we're headed as a state. This election is about leadership and tackling a lot of tough choices. And unfortunately, we can't solve all the problems. But we know that these are really tough times that we're living in right now, where we have to make some decisions that are going to affect like the next 25 years in the state of Wisconsin. And I do believe we're headed in the right direction. I can tell you that when the economy was bad in a recession, I commuted 103 miles each way every day to work. I put on over 1,000 miles a week. But I made a decision that if that's where the work was, that's where I was going to go. And my children, I've raised them, and I've told them, I said, sometimes you put your dignity aside, and you're going to have to go out there, and if whatever happens in our economy, you have to work. Okay. And you have to play to win, and you have to work another day. You got to survive. And I think that's the work ethic that built Wisconsin in our country, and that's those values that we have to instill in our children.
Your mother-in-law with Alzheimer's needs caregivers.
Yep.
AARP estimates that 578,000 Wisconsin residents are caregivers. Have you or any of the voters you've talked to in your district said we should strengthen the laws to allow caregivers to become more of a partner when the person they're caring for is hospitalized? Has that ever come up as an issue?
No, but not in that, I guess, quite in that fashion. I think the big thing that's come up is realizing that, there's so many people in the issue of getting a nurse to help out, and the issue of hospitalization, the issue of transportation, the medical bills. I mean, this is a lot to deal with, and nothing in the entire field, if you will, is cheap. Everything's expensive. I mean, one stays $30,000 in the hospital or something like that. But the big thing is that there is a huge need for it. And again, until I see the numbers on what we're doing and how it all fits in with everything else, we'll go from there. But what we do know is that what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a lot of young people who need care nowadays. Which is, in the past, generally people who are like 65, 70, 75, or unless they had some significant injury when they were younger or something like that. Right. But nowadays, it's people who are 35 years old, 40 years old. They need help.
Last question. Differences between you and the Democrat incumbent that you're opposing on November 6th?
Well, there's a huge difference. I'm running purely on my accomplishments. Again, my parents had a third grade education. My father got flown in on a jet to the United States to help the dairy industry and the beef industry. That's how he got here. And I have 6 brothers and 2 sisters. We lived in East Troy, Wisconsin, and my father brought us to Milwaukee in 1976. Our entire family has become a middle-class family. We've gotten to where we've gotten through sacrifice and hard work. And I'm running on my accomplishments. My accomplishments while at the city back then as elected official, we did over $300 million of economic development. We outpaced every district, including downtown, and grew the city's tax base quicker than anyone else. We had healthcare seminars to deal with diabetes and prenatal care, services even for undocumented people. We went out there and brought relief. Whenever there was a fire, we were there to extinguish the fire or see if we could at least get it under control. Privately, as a father, I've made a decision to live here in the city, and rather than invest elsewhere, we own 9 homes in this city, and we're very proud of that. And we work very hard on our real estate to make things look good. There's a lot of diversity here, and this is where we want to be. But my difference from the Democratic Party is I'm a conservative. I don't believe you can just continue to throw money at things, and I think that this election is going to be very telling. Because when I'm walking around, what I'm finding out is that a lot of people who typically vote Democrat are not going to. Why? Because their quality of life issues have been significantly affected. How's that happened? Well, for one, the drug problem on the street. We have prostitution problems on the street. The lack of police service in some cases is slow because they're so busy or they're stretched. The police need more officers. So these things affect all the very basic needs of our neighbors, their quality of life. And they have told me, a lot of the people that they're voting, they felt like they've been abandoned by the Democratic Party. So those are all the things I'm running on.
Thank you. Angel Sanchez of Milwaukee is a Republican candidate in the 8th Assembly District. The election is November 6th. Mr. Sanchez, thank you for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you.
Right.
Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, AARP Wisconsin, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.